morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy hump day, everyone. Here's a look at the ES in the daily time frame right now. Very quiet price action in the pre-market trade, overnight trade. This is an inside day. The previous session finished at 28% of average range of the last 10 sessions. Of course, last 10 sessions been super high range volatile movement. Right now we have a squat bar day here, very narrow range, 28% of ADR, and today heading into the RTH open right now, just 23% of average range and an inside day at the moment. A 2-day compression now developing with an upward bias. But we have an upward bias up until we get to the recent highs here. And then do we start to see a rotation back down to create a larger range? Do we push higher and break out? Right now, the edges will be very important here. If we drop down through the previous session's low, it's a buy back up. If it pushes back above the high, it's a sell back down as this market develops a trading range. This little box, though, is concerning. If you're looking kind of intraday, 60-minute chart, there is a narrow box here above the previous week's high. Very big, wide-ranging week of action last week, and now to form that tiny box here above that high can tend to bring about a failure response here. If this thing can't get going to the upside, then these late longs start to liquidate back down. So that's going to be something to watch, perhaps through 67.40. All right, let's take a look here at the NQ. NQ also developing a 2-day narrow range, inside day at the moment, very narrow. Previous session also a squat bar, 32% of ADR yesterday, today 26% of ADR, and that's following again super high volatility price action over the last couple of weeks. Now this one also, like the ES, has developed that 2-day range here, this narrow box right on top of the previous week's high there. And so again, if there's any failure to really hold that 25.2, that can open things up for a rotation back down within the prior week range. For right now, we still see quite a bit of strength, directional bullish conviction right now. And for example, if we can get a strong failed new low here, it could be a tremendous short-term buying opportunity. So right here, keeping an eye on the previous session's high and low, fade the edges with an upward bias until proven otherwise. Looking at crude oil, here's a look at crude. Now this one's up 2% here. Yesterday we mentioned that any pullback into 58s could be an opportunity for bears to defend intraday, and 58 was the high for a while. It dropped back to 57, and then it closed right here with a shot to kind of push higher today. A higher value relationship, higher highs, higher lows, and now we're seeing a check mark continuation to the upside. Again, any strength in crude oil tends to be very short term. So any pullback here, perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow, could be met with selling pressure, and then that could lead to another rotation down. 54 is still below. 54 is support, big time support down here, big time market structure level as well at 54. The next one up is 64. So once we're done with 54, we can go back to 64. Until then, this pullback could be met with some selling pressure for the next drop up ahead. Looking at gold futures, massive day in the previous session, 270% of ADR and a 300-point day. That was a 300-point range day, massive resistance up above, and a huge drop. That was a significant day one event. And it was a secondary day one event because that was a day one event as well. That was a 200-point day. That was a 300-point day. This is just incredible volatility, so mind your risk here. Now, even if this is a very strong day one high or a secondary strong high here, does that mean we drop necessarily all the way back down right away, or how's this thing going to play out? Right now, the key level to watch here for us is 4,000. That's the key level, and we could drop into that level over the next 1 to 2 days. and then find some lows here, and if we can snap back to the midpoint of the impulse sell-off, that gives us a new super large key range, and that could literally be the range for the next several months, or at least the next several weeks. So it doesn't necessarily have to melt down all the way back to 3,500, the breakout point, although we could get there at some point. I think right now it's 4,000 to 4,500, and below 4,000 down to 3,500. If we can find a low here pretty soon and bounce it back, there's a key range potential here that could develop. All right, looking at the YM. YM is flat on the day at the moment, just 122 points of range, which is 16.5% of average range. 16.5%. That never really happens. So this is how the volatility has just been snatched at the moment, as this market appears to be in a wait-and-see mode right now. Wait-and-see mode to see how things will play out here, perhaps with government shutdown, additionally with the tariffs in China storyline and those things, but a very resilient market nonetheless, as this market has continued to rotate back toward previous highs despite that massive one-day meltdown. So overall, this market remains bullish here. Any pullback or a failed new low could be a buying opportunity for a continuation up. Once we get to new highs, which we actually did yesterday, do we fall back within the range to create a larger trading range here? Or is this an opportunity where this thing can get going more north? So continuing to watch these levels here for the YM. Bitcoin sliding back down. Big time slide back down for Bitcoin here today, but that's something we knew could happen. Watching for failed new lows here. And at the moment, a pretty good reaction in the lower time frames off the 107 retest. A bounce and recovery back above the 2-day lows at the moment developing. We do have a sell side signal here on the downside. This thing has been trending lower, but has hit obviously the lower end of the trading range and taking out those lows, starting to find its lows here. But like I mentioned before, this has a shot here to come back and grab the midpoint here of the recent impulse move, and if so, that could give us a really good large key range to work with. Can we get there before we hit a new low? So can this market find a failed new low here and start to work its way back up and hit the 115.490 level? 115.420. That's the midpoint there. If we can get that, we have ourselves a super large new key range that would point to either 150 to the upside or 80K to the downside. Great symmetry there if we can get that midpoint. Looking at ETH, this one's down 4% as well. Backsliding here. Failed new low opportunity developing here. The lower time frames also showing decent reaction and rejection of those lower levels. Again, kind of a layered 2 key range level here. So the bottom end of 2 different key ranges showing some support. Can this thing find some lows? This thing needs to bounce up to 42.42. 42.42 is the level right there. If we can get that level, we have ourselves a new larger key range to work with, starting from the 4,800 level down to 36.85, back to 42.42. So watching to see if we can materialize on this failed new low. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out here heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.